let's kick off hour 2 with our latest edition of the quarterback roundup. Because we're in week 5. We're cruising. We're a little over a month into the season. And this week we're going to talk surprises. Who has kind of been your biggest surprise this year at the quarterback position? And both of my big surprises played each other on Thursday night. Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield. That NFC South is, it's going to be a fun little battle this season. But let's start in Atlanta. The OT winners from Thursday Night Football. Kirk Cousins. Wow. Just remember, he is also coming off the biggest injury of his career, torn Achilles, that happened later than Aaron Rodgers did. And we spent a lot of time this offseason talking about, can Aaron Rodgers come back? Is he going to be okay? Kirk Cousins was coming back from the same thing. And also, new team, new system. The Falcons drafted his replacement with the 8th overall pick, and he has been showing up and showing out. The last 2 minutes of that Thursday night game was madness. Blocked field goals, punch-out turnovers, down to the last second field goal to tie it, and then the OT win. And Kirk Cousins was on the herd on Friday, really just explaining how we got to this point.
I think you certainly can get to a place where you feel like the game slows down and you've got good anticipation. I think that for me, what troubled me to start the year was I didn't feel like I had that anticipation or that sense of where things were going. And each week I've improved, and then I felt like last night our offense and my own play kind of took a big jump forward where I was anticipating better. I was playing fast. I was quick, but I wasn't in a hurry. And that's really where you want to be all the time, but it's just taken me a few weeks to get there. And now the challenge is, can we sustain over the next few months?
Now, Carmen, you've spent a good amount of time covering Kirk Cousins and his time with the Vikings, but what's impressed you most about Cousins and what he's done this year in Atlanta?
I mean, I think it's just coming back from what a catastrophic injury that was at the age that he is. Yeah. I mean, he's no spring chicken. He's 35, 36 years old. That was not something that I was going to take for granted, that he was going to come back and be the same player. And in fact, when you see him throw, he still isn't quite planning on that back foot. Yeah. You can still see his heel kind of up in the air a little bit. I think Kirk Herbstreit pointed that out on the broadcast, which affects the torque. It affects how far the ball can travel, how fast the ball can travel.
Everything.
But what they've done a really good job, and what Zach Robinson in particular, their offensive coordinator Atlanta, has done a really good job of, is really kind of insulate against that and Kirk having to hold the ball, risking getting hurt, risking getting hit. It's the ball's coming out quickly. Like Kirk just said, he's moving quick without being hurried, or he's not in a hurry. And that's allowing him to see all of the different weapons that he has at his disposal. You're getting Drake London involved. You're getting Kyle Pitts involved finally, who hadn't been really involved up until Thursday night. You have Bijan Robinson, who is such a little Swiss Army knife between what he can do on the ground and then, catching passes out of the backfield especially. So there's so much opportunity in Atlanta for this to really kind of start clicking. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the incremental improvement and Kirk getting a little bit more comfortable to the tune. I mean, the law of averages, this man threw for a franchise record 509 yards in one single game, but he also threw the ball 58 times.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly the split you necessarily want to see. Now the game went into overtime. That's including overtime. That makes a difference, obviously, because there's extra football being played. You would still like to see some of this being taken off of Kirk's shoulders, but Kirk has also completely shed his narrative that he can't perform in prime time. Just listen to what he's been able to do. This was going into the game. He had 2,528 passing yards, 316 per game, and 19 touchdown passes for a 107.9 rating in his past 8 Thursday starts leading into Thursday's game, including 2 or more touchdown passes in 7 of the 8 games. So now you add on, that's now 8 of 9 games that he's had 2 or more touchdown passes.
Okay.
And in general, he's had over 100 quarterback rating in 4 of his last primetime starts. So there was this whole narrative early in Kirk's career that he did not show up for the biggest moments. He has completely flipped that on his head.
Yeah, he talked about that too when he was on the herd yesterday.
That's all he kept
thought
hearing.
about. He's like, I thought about it, and I used it as motivation, and I wanted to show, like, I can show up, and I can be that guy in these big moments.
And he has been the guy that can show up and be clutch for so much longer than we've given him credit for, as just evidenced in all of those stats and those fun things. And then, you show up on the biggest night. You have things going wrong in the kicking game. I mean, Younghoe Koo missed 2 field goals, had 1 blocked. things were not necessarily clicking in other aspects of the team itself, because the defense was letting up explosive plays to Baker Mayfield. I mean, he had 3 touchdown passes before you could even blink that night.
Yep.
And yet Kirk still battled back. And then the final 2 minutes of that game, then overtime leading that drive. I mean, it was just, I'm so happy for Kirk because he's such a good guy. And I think a lot of people in Minnesota knew how good of a quarterback he was, but he was still kind of a punchline for the rest of the league. And now he's not.
I love it. It was, how do you not like fall in love with Kirk Cousins when you hear him talk? He's just like such a passionate guy who cares.
Such a dad.
He
He's
is,
such a dad. It's
which
so
is
cute.
great. I love it so much. Okay, now let's talk about the other guy who's taken such great advantage of this next opportunity. Obviously, last season into this season, but Baker Mayfield. He has become the Bucs Pirate. He has found his home and fits in so perfectly. And heading into the game against the Falcons, he had top 10 numbers. 2nd in passing touchdowns, 5th in passer rating, 6th in passing yards, and 9th in completion percentage. He had top quarterback numbers. And I am just so happy for his turnaround. We talk so much about the right fit, not only like the quarterback to the team, but the coach to the quarterback. Like everything has to really mesh in the right way for things to work. And this is Baker's 4th team in his career, and it feels like it's finally working. And it was such a like a dramatic jump, especially for how things ended with the Browns and the way it ended, choosing the bad man over Baker. It's just like, I'm so happy also for this Bucs team to have a strong quarterback after losing, obviously, the GOAT, Tom Brady, who brings you a Super Bowl. And it's okay, like, what's next after him? Like, you got Baker, and he can still be himself.
The Bucs wanted Baker before Tom Brady. Baker was the backup plan to Tom. If they couldn't land Tom,
interesting,
they wanted Baker.
Interesting.
This team has wanted Baker for a long time.
Interesting.
So last year, when Baker finally gets there, it was instantaneous. Like, this is not shocking to me at all, and I realize that I have a better lens than most people do into this organization.
If you're unaware, Carmen was the team reporter for the Bucs when they won the Super Bowl, and for how many years?
6 years.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of those guys that I worked with are still there. It has let me be privy to a lot of kind of the behind the scenes of what has gone into building this team and sustaining this team after Tom Brady's departure. And Baker instantaneously felt like he belonged. He set up his foundation with his wife, and like they bought a house and they did all of this stuff in Tampa, and they wanted to stay in Tampa. There was never a doubt in my mind that they were going to extend him after this last year. And now it showed last year. It's showing even more now that like this is his team, and he is so comfortable. He is wanted. He fits right in. They went out and they wanted his input for offensive coordinator when Dave Canales left for Carolina.
That's gotta feel so good.
They brought in Liam Cohen, who Baker has worked with at that short stint with the Rams. This is all just a really good marriage of wanting a guy, making him feel welcome, and making him feel valued. And that's what the Bucs are so good at. A lot of that team is still left over from the Super Bowl team. You kind of got some of these aging guys, but the connection between Baker and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin finally looks back to normal last year, coming off the knee injury.
Needed that.
I was so worried about him, and now he looks like his old self. And it's so rewarding to see these guys having so much fun playing football, and like the way that Baker plays off his offensive line and how they play off of him. He's enjoying himself.
And he can be himself. He can be, as we were talking about, him like doing like the Gus Swayze thing, like going undercover, like being with the fans, acting, and just being his weird self.
He's so interactive with fans as it is. Like that's
so
not something new for him. He's been doing that the whole time. Really quick before I have to just mention it though, because we didn't get to it. My biggest surprise this year is Sam Darnold.
Well, yeah, that's next.
Do we have time?
Yeah.
We don't have time.
We have time. Literally, he is next. He is the most surprised. Sam Darnold.
I was saying, it's taken this long to get to Sam Darnold.
Vikings.
Who is the most surprising of all of this.
With that huge win over the Packers last weekend, we both got that one wrong. I think we both picked the Packers.
Oh, that game initially.
That game
I will say,
initially.
I have been advocating for Sam Darnold for a long time. I've been a Sam Darnold truther, thinking that he's just been dealt some really bad cards.
Like, talk about making the most of your opportunity and possibly your last chance to have that starting position. I mean, through the first 4 weeks, he's first in passing touchdowns and second in passer rating.
Yes. Baker Mayfield actually is now tied with Sam Darnold, but that's going
he has
into
one
Sunday.
more game.
He has one more game.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. We're talking about the first 4 games.
No. Sam Darnold is just we keep seeing these examples over and over again of quarterbacks that you need a good situation when you bring them into the league.
Yeah.
You cannot escape that. There are the exceptions. There are the CJ Strouds. There's the Jaden Daniels this year where they do end up in the situation that they need to thrive. But more often than not, Kevin O'Connell himself said it, that we fail college quarterbacks coming into the league more than they fail us. And it's so true because you're seeing guys like Geno Smith, who's coming on later, Baker Mayfield, who comes on with his 4th team. You now have Sam Darnold doing the same thing because turns out, shocking, coaching matters.
Yes, it does.
And Kevin O'Connell is one of the best that this league has to offer. We saw it last year when Kirk Cousins went down, and he was literally playing live action Madden with the backups that he had. Josh Dobbs in particular, who had gotten there 3 days prior to having to essentially start a game. He didn't, but Jaron Hall got knocked out with a concussion early on. That was the first indication just to how good of a coach Kevin O'Connell is. Sam Darnold is the latest example of that, and I think it's making people really understand and notice how good Kevin O'Connell is, how good the tandem of him and Brian Flores are as far as coordinators go or play callers go. I don't think there's a team that has a better situation in offensive and defensive play caller than the Minnesota Vikings, and that's what you're seeing. Like, the scheme has married up on the defensive side of the ball under Brian Flores again for this next year, and then Sam Darnold is taking advantage of all of the talent he has around him. By the way, TJ Hawkinson hasn't even played yet this year. They activated the practice window. He's with the team in London. He's going to practice with them. I don't expect him to be out on the field yet, or them to activate him, but he will be soon. And that adds a whole other dimension to this offense that's already killing it because Sam Darnold is finally in a place that is fostering his development and his growth. And I just think that we really need to spend a lot of time thinking inwards as to our expectations of quarterbacks, because the college game and the NFL game is so drastically different. It really, I know the eye test makes it look similar. It is not. Not for a quarterback. It is so much more difficult than we give these guys credit for, and we need to be able to stick with these guys and develop them. Have a more realistic expectation of these guys, because then you get rewarded with a guy like Sam Darnold.
Speaking of that.
Yeah.
Are you ready to say you're impressed yet with Justin Fields? Because I'm going to keep pumping this up. Even in their first loss of the season, Field had 3 touchdowns, 1 passing, 2 rushing. Steelers and Justin Fields are first in the AFC North.
But they're still being led by the defense.
Still,
that's my thing.
Still,
he's in a much better situation.
Gotta give him a chance.
He's in a much better situation.
So you're saying there's a chance.
No, he's in a much better situation.
Baby.
He has a better play caller. He has a better coach. He has better things around him. He has still not won a game for the Steelers. The defense has won these games. They are a defense forward team. That is what they are.
Got 3 touchdowns in the last loss.
Justin Fields has not shown me anything that makes me think that he is the quarterback of the future yet. He has done better.
I'm just saying impressed. Okay.
No, that's the thing, is I'm not impressed yet. You need to show me that you are if you are going to be a franchise. No, it's not personal, Alex. This is the thing. I want people to hold these guys to the standard that we're going to hold everybody else to. If he is a franchise starting quarterback, then we need to put him up there with Kirk Cousins. We need to put up there with Jared Goff. We need to put him up there with Matthew Stafford. All of these guys that are really good quarterbacks in the league before I'm going to go out there and say impressed. CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels at this point.
You're naming like the top half of the tiers of quarterbacks. There are different tiers.
There are, but if you want a franchise guy, like I'm going to be impressed if he goes out there and he shows me that he is the franchise guy of the future in Pittsburgh. In order to do that, yes, you need to be compared to those guys.
All right.